It's the Finnish Bolshevik, aka the Leninist plays games, and
Comrade Faroh.
aka Volker.
Volker.
This is probably going to be a series where we just basically talk about movies, right?
Yeah.
We both just watched Oldboy, but you've seen it a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, I've seen it at least like 4 times.
So you're the expert this time. Next time we're probably going to talk about a film that I'm more familiar with. But do you want to give a summary of the film's plot or the basic premise?
Yeah, sure. So the basic premise of Oldboy is a salaryman named Odesu is abducted on his daughter's birthday and put in a room for 15 years. Eventually he's let out and he has to discover who locked him up. And that's basically it without spoilers.
Yeah, so Oldboy, it's like a... Would you say that it's a classic?
Like an actual, like, film culture?
No, like, I mean, maybe a cult classic would be a better term for it.
Yeah, because I think it is relatively popular and was popular enough to get a remake. So I think I would definitely consider it a classic. Not even a cult classic, just a classic in general.
Yeah, maybe a minor classic.
Mm-hmm. I think the rest of the Vengeance trilogy would be called cult classics.
Yeah, I'm interested in watching the rest of the films in the series. Like, this was the second one out of the 3, right?
Yeah. But it's definitely the more noted out of them.
Yeah. So it's a 2003 South Korean film that Wikipedia characterizes as a mystery thriller neo-noir film. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely a mystery. It's definitely... I would say it's neo-noir.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like, I remember people were talking about this for a while. Like, I finally watched it, but before that, before you even started telling me to watch it, like, the name kept coming up. Like, I just kept hearing people talk about it. Not like as a major film, but just as a film that, you know, film fans should see.
Yeah. Just quick spoiler alert, because I want to ask something. Did you know about the ending before you watched it?
No, I had no idea.
No, because I was spoiled before I saw it, but it was still fairly powerful.
Well, actually, I was sort of spoiled because like I told you, because you told me to watch this, so I tried to find it, and instead of actually getting the South Korean original, I accidentally got the American remake, because, I mean, it just said Oldboy, and I was like, okay. But since I had it, I felt like, oh, well, I might as well watch this. So I watched the American remake first. To be honest, like, there were quite a number of differences in the plot, so it was still very intense and thrilling to see the original, but the ending was kind of spoiled. Like, I sort of knew that the ending was going to be crazy, but the endings of the original and the remake are actually different.
To clarify, I have not seen the remake.
But actually, like, the remake gets a lot of hate. Like, it's a 2013 American remake. Like, it gets a lot of hate, but, I mean, to be honest, like, the cinematography is nice. Like, there's a montage where, you know, the main character, the protagonist, is he's locked up in the hotel room, and, you know, they keep feeding him, like, fried dumplings each day, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a montage where it's just, like, showing different kinds of plates with fried dumplings.
Wait, they also gave him dumplings in the remake?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, actually, it is kind of interesting, because it takes place in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so I thought that montage was pretty nice.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, also, it's relatively decent, so it's kind of hard to, like, the story, you know, is kind of hard to fuck up as well.
Yeah, although I think they made it too over the top, and they changed parts of the story, so it was just, they basically tried to one-up the original by making it even more crazy.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's the famous fight scene where the protagonist is, like, fighting a giant crowd of people with a hammer, and they actually had that in the remake as well, but it doesn't fit the film at all because it looks like it's straight from like an anime or a manga or something.
Yeah. How was the cinematography on the scene? Was it just like a wide shot showing all the action, or was it like the camera swinging with each blow?
It was kind of in between.
Mm-hmm.
It was somewhat similar to the original.
Also, like, I know you can't do that much with it, and, you know, maybe there might be significance or something, but, I noticed in, like, other media compared to, like, generally American and Western media, it has, like, a lot more significance placed on names.
What do you mean?
How Odesu is literally, well, even Odesu says it means getting by one day at a time, and how it sounds similar to Oedipus. Well, what is the protagonist called in the remake, like Joe or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I think that's relatively interesting. Like, I know that can't really be changed, you know, due to, like, actual naming differences in culture, but I still think it's, like, interesting.
Well, what do you think about the plot of the movie in general?
I think it's I think it's especially good for an adaptation of a Greek tragedy, and actually changing it to make it substantiative. If that's the right word.
I mean, it's a very sort of a loose adaptation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would even call it a modernization.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, like, the general premise of it is it's sort of unbelievable. Like, like, he is captured and put into a hotel room, you know, imprisoned for a really long time, and then he has to figure out who did it and why. So then he just he makes a list of all the people who he thinks he has wronged in some way. It is kind of unbelievable, like, why the person who did it, like, why they did that. But, I mean, somehow it still feels fitting, like it feels like it's not really supposed to be realistic.
Yeah, I think that itself is also kind of recapturing the melodrama of, like, ancient Greek tragedies, and just how, like, heavy everything is, despite not making much sense. Because, like, I thought about that too, how if he really wanted to, like, how they show him cutting his wrist 2 times from glass from a painting in the room, if he wanted to, he could just cut his throat.
Yeah. I mean, it almost feels like a nightmare in a way, because, like, the main villain of the movie, he has, like, almost superhuman, like, or almost, like, omnipotent or omniscient powers to basically be able to spy the heroes, basically.
Yeah, and, like, you know, I don't know if there's a statement there, but I think that's interesting how he can literally just do that because he has money.
Yeah, like, Odesu, he was, like, what was his actual job?
I don't think they say, but he's just a salary man, basically.
Yeah, that's something they changed in the remake. Like, in the remake, he's a real, like, scummy, like, he's basically like a con man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's like some kind of a sales guy, but he tries to, like, scam people, and he's like a very unlikable character in the beginning. Then he's supposed to evolve, but I don't know, like, it just didn't work quite as well as in the original.
Yeah. Really, like, even from the police scene straight off when he's, like, in a drunken fit, it's really easy to, like, laugh and identify with Odesu.
In the remake, he's an actual alcoholic.
Yeah.
They actually give him liquor with his food each day.
Did they talk about... Because, like, I thought that's, you know, important for realism's sake. Did they talk about, how they put, drugs in his, like, antidepressants in his water in the remake?
I don't remember, but yeah, it was interesting how they said that in the original, like, that's how they stopped him from basically going totally insane.
Yeah, which makes a big degree of sense.
But that was actually a pretty cool scene, like, where it talks about the like, how everyone who is so lonely, how they all, like, kind of hallucinate and see things. Like, it's shows the female protagonist, and she's, like, in the metro, and she sees, like, a giant ant or something.
Yeah. Like, after that, I wonder if there's, like, an actual significance of that, and, like that being documented, because I've never heard of that before. Like, I've heard of people, you know, seeing things when they're, like, lonely, but not specifically ants. Oh yeah, what do you think about the eating of the live squid?
now that I think about it, it probably has some kind of symbolic significance, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it at the time.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting since, like, eating live things is legal in Korea, and, like, how that was an actual live squid.
Although, maybe he was just, like... maybe he was basically just sick of having to eat the same thing for 15 years, so he just wanted something extreme.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it in that scene.
Actually, in the remake, they put more emphasis on the food he's eating, because in the original, it's not quite so clear that he just eats the same thing every day. Like he, at least to me, like he complains at one point, like give me something else to eat, but it's not so clear. What do you think about the level of violence in the film? I mean, it's pretty extreme, right?
Extreme, but like, well, yeah, I was about to say like to a degree justifiably, but like, well, I think it's really, I think it's really great how the biggest acts of savagery are committed by our protagonist.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, because like, I do like the idea of, you know, a pretty flawed protagonist, and like Odesu's no hero in any of that.
Yeah, although I mean, I think that he was sort of like he wasn't a big enough asshole to deserve what happened to him, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think that's just association by Li Woo-jin, but yeah, I don't think he was, you know, deserved that. But like, I mean, afterward, because like, you know, regardless, pulling someone's like tooth out with a hammer is pretty fucked.
Yeah, but I mean, I sort of think that was justified just because, like,
yeah,
he tortured the guy, but the guy imprisoned him for 15 years, so...
Yeah. But I mean, like, it still relatively takes a special kind of person.
It's one of those, big, like, revenge films. Sort of like Kill Bill, but at least similar to Kill Bill in how big the scale is. It's like, he's literally been imprisoned for 15 years, so it's a pretty epic, crime that's been committed against him, so the revenge is also gonna be kind of epic. Although, he doesn't exactly get his vengeance. It only kind of goes downhill for him, even though he ends up sort of kind of winning, but still not really.
See, I wouldn't say vengeance is the key motivator. At first it seems like it, but I would say it's truth.
Well, yeah, even though in the end he wants the truth, but then when he finds out the truth, he doesn't actually want it anymore.
Yeah, which I think they call it peripateia in like ancient Greek theater, which I really like the idea because like the whole saying like truth will set you free or whatever, and how like much value is based on truth. But really, what do you do if it's a truth you don't like?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of Lovecraftian. Like that's what I thought. Like the guy, he literally like he can't handle the truth. Like he literally comes to the conclusion that like why did I ever want to find out? Like I shouldn't have ever found out.
Yeah, because like that's such a scary concept of striving for truth. That's just terrible and unbearable. That honestly is one of the scariest things to me, and I think that's why Oldboy is really powerful.
It starts out basically as a revenge movie, and like you said, like the main character is the one who is doing most of the brutality. In that sense, it kind of reminded me of there's a movie called I Spit on Your Grave. I think I talked with you about that.
Yeah, that's a Coffin Joe, right?
No, it's like it's the movie that was called Day of the Woman originally.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's just so confusing because it was called the Day of the Woman, and then they changed the title to I Spit on Your Grave, which is so irrelevant to anything that happens in the movie, actually. But yeah, it sounds like a Coffin Joe movie. It sounds like
yeah, it really does.
It sounds like At Midnight I Will Possess Your Corpse, and what was the other one?
No, it's At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, and then the other one is This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse.
Yeah, which is great because it's. I mean, I'm sure it's actually a translation.
It probably sounded way cooler in like Portuguese.
Oh, fucking Coffin Joe.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, in that movie, like in Day of the Woman, like the revenge is epic. Even though basically the female character is totally justified in the revenge, it's still like you're kind of horrified by it.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't really cheer her on, at least. I mean, you kind of do in some parts, but not really.
Yeah. Like, honestly, would you consider Lee Woo-jin any worse than Ode-su?
That's a good question.
Because, I mean, they're both seeking revenge for what they consider terrible atrocities.
Yeah.
I mean, is there really any, like, I understand, like, the moral implications in the scale of one, but, like, it's the intentions that matter. So is either of them really worse than the other?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is that, the reason that I kind of want to give Ode-su a break is because he didn't intend for the thing to happen, which ended up happening because of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is relatively in his corner.
I mean, that's why he didn't even know why, like, who was behind it and why, because he literally didn't know what happened because of him.
I thought that was hilarious. No, like, intentional scheme or anything, he just forgot.
Yeah, but that's kind of the brutality of it, because, like, he was trying to say that, oh, I mean, something happened, so I forgot, and the villain is like, no, I mean, the reality is that you just don't care, because it doesn't matter.
No, he thinks he was hypnotized and the memory was removed.
Oh, yeah, but then the villain is like, no, the real reason is just because you don't care at all about this person who basically got totally fucked because of you.
Yeah.
So you just forgot. Which is, like, even more terrible.
I mean, like, also in the corner of Ode-su is, Lee Woo-jin killed, Jo Hwan, which I think is, Ode-su's friend who works at the internet cafe. If you remember, he breaks, like, a disc and kills him with it.
Yeah, although he kind of did bring it upon himself, albeit accidentally.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's obviously awful, but, like, consider at the beginning when Ode-su just lets that guy kill himself.
I interpreted that as he was just so fucked when he got out of the hotel room that he wasn't, like, adjusted to reality yet. But still, it was a really, it says something about humans that he was like, I have to tell you my story, and then he tells his story, and then the guy who's going to kill himself is like, okay, now you have to listen to my story, and he just leaves, and then the guy kills himself.
Yeah. And also to agree, like, I would also argue another thing about the brutality of Ode-su is how he literally smiles when an elevator full of more opponents show up. So I'd say he's relishing in his revenge.
I think he's relishing in his own suffering as well.
Yeah. Like, just in, like, you know, a superhero, like, comic book way, when, like, the elevator door opens and all, like, their bodies fall out, is really cool.
Yeah, it was really great, but that's like why I said that it didn't fit at all into the Western remake, because it looked so much like a manga or something.
The thing, I kind of like the disparity of, like, you know, somewhat violence in that, how, like, everything there and then that are, you know, justified and look really cool or whatever, but the violence we don't want to happen is, like, really gruesome and just hard to look at.
Yeah, but, like, still, this is kind of a weird comparison, but, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Serbian film.
No, I haven't. I should, though.
You've heard about it, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's actually pretty similar in the sense that, even though it's like, there's crazy violence in it, there's even, like, all kinds of crazy violence in it. There's, like, crazy sexual violence and all kinds of unbearable shit, but still, like, really the most horrific stuff that happens is mainly because of the plot. I mean, fairly similar to Oldboy. Like, you think there's something going on, but then when you find out what's actually going on, you're like, oh god, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like anything, relatively any kind of media, like, you know, I'm not, like, anti-violence or whatever. I think violence definitely does have a place in media. But, well, I like anything that eventually you don't want to see violence happen, just because of how invested you are in the characters and shit. And I think to a certain degree, Oldboy gets down to that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you're very much invested in the character, even though he is an extremely flawed character.
Yeah, like, after, you know, he's in Lee Woo-jin's, like, penthouse, really you don't want to see anything else happen after you realize the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, when he, like, this is...
Because you know it can only get worse.
Yeah, I mean, this is a minor spoiler, I suppose. Like, it doesn't really have an impact on the plot or anything, but like, when he cuts his tongue in the end, I was like, no, don't do that. Even though, I mean, you know, like, he does that, and it's basically, like, he's already fucked. Like, it doesn't really matter, but I just, like, it didn't matter to him, so that's why he did it. But, like, I still felt invested enough into the character. I didn't want him to do that.
I think that's one of the strongest comparison points between that and Oedipus. Because in Oedipus, after he discovers the truth about him being the cause of the plague and literally fucking his own mother, he gouges his eyes out with golden pens. And then after that, that's when he can actually see things and not just be swallowed up by pride. Now, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but do you remember the ending scene when he writes that letter to the woman to, like, try to erase his memories?
Yeah.
It's very beautiful and eloquently written, so I would say that he wasn't able to truly speak until his tongue was out. So that's another comparison between that and Oedipus.
Like, despite all the violence was like nothing compared to the, you know, psychological violence that was going on, basically.
Yeah, like, I knew it was going to happen, and the reveal was still shocking, like the picture book. It's just such an awful thing presented in such an elegant manner.
Yeah.
I also really like the whole reversal of Mito praying that Li Wujin will fall before his knees and ask Odesu for forgiveness, but literally the exact opposite happens.
Well, what's your favorite part of the movie?
I think I would have to say the elevator scene with Li Wujin. Because, like, when the whole thing of, like, holding his sister as she was, like, jumping off the bridge, it's, like, you know, kind of melodramatic, but, like, the whole thing of his hand, like, shifting into the shape of, like, how you hold a gun, then him killing himself, I think was a great shot. And just because how abruptly the gunshot comes in and interrupts the music, I think it's jarring and just, I don't know, I think that's definitely the best scene for me. What would you say is yours?
Well, I kind of liked it when he was imprisoned. I thought it was kind of, to be honest, it was kind of funny how he was, like, he was just there and he couldn't do anything except watch TV.
Yeah.
So he was just, like, watching, like, martial arts movies and learning kung fu or something. I mean, which is, you know, very unrealistic, but still.
Yeah. No, I think he, like, trains by just punching the wall.
Well, yeah, that too. The premise was so crazy, but somehow they still made it somewhat believable when he was, like, when he gets out and then, there's a group of people who just try to beat him up and he's like, can 15 years of training be put into use? And then he just, like, totally annihilates them, breaks every bone in their bodies, and he's like, yes, it can.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, probably wouldn't, but, I mean, okay, somehow it was still cool.
Every action scene is, like, surreal, as in, like, just completely, like, unrealistic ass-kickings, but it still fits in the movie, which is, like, really surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think the 15 years was the worst part. I think, you know, worst was to come when he got out.
I also like the comparison of the outside world just being a bigger prison, since Odesu is still, like, bound by the truth that he wants.
Yeah, true. So, okay, what do you think is the moral of the story, if there is a moral?
I guess, like, the simplest way would probably be, like, anti-revenge. Because it doesn't really show, like, revenge is bad. It literally just shows the practical effects of it without cramming it down your throat.
Yeah. Like,
we see how it's affecting these characters, how it's destroying their lives.
Yeah, exactly. It destroyed both of them.
It's honestly the starkest, like, painting of revenge.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could be a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, although he would be the most fucked up Twilight Zone episode ever.
Yeah, it's like when Rod Sterling, like, goes crazy.
He starts doing crack and, like, starts having
submitted for your approval.
Yeah, although I don't think even Lovecraft would have done that. I mean, there's a lot of Lovecraft stories which are about, basically, there's like a dark secret in the family's history or in basically the family bloodline that the protagonist doesn't know about, and then he finds out, and it's like horror.
Yeah.
He learns that he's actually like a fish person or something.
He's a quarter fish person.
Yeah, he's like, I was trying to fight against the fish people, but turns out I'm one of them. Dun dun dun. Which, I mean, that kind of reveal is like the worst possible thing.
Yeah. I mean, those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can still fight against the fish people. So, old boy. I hate when people do this, like trying to cram like a political message in. But do you think there is any at all like kind of political connotations in Oldboy? Because I think relatively a statement about Li Wujin being able to do anything since he has money in a private prison where people like get locked up just for relatively mundane shit. I don't know, do you think there's anything there?
Maybe. I mean, it kind of just reminded me of social alienation, just like...
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, yeah, it's a big problem especially in capitalist societies, like...
Yeah. And in South Korea, especially where the suicide rate is, like, exponential.
But anyway, Oldboy, like, I thought it was great. I
mean, honestly, like, probably my top 3 favorite movies.
Definitely a great movie. I would recommend it. Like, it's one of those films where I could say that it's actually worth the hype. Like, there isn't a crazy amount of hype about it, but there, like, every now and then you come across a person who, like, really praises it highly, and I think that is warranted.
Because really, like, even, the violence in it is usually what, like, gets hyped, and honestly, even that does not disappoint.
Yeah, it doesn't. Like, it's very well choreographed, the special effects are really good.
Yeah. And the acting is obviously great.
Yeah.
If you like Oldboy, watch the rest of the Vengeance trilogy. I haven't seen it myself, but still.
Yeah, like, maybe we will watch those other 2 movies and then talk about them, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, comparison to Oldboy.
Yeah.
Because I know they're not, like, related, like, story-wise, but...
But yeah, next time we'll probably talk about Nosferatu, so a very different movie, but that's another film that... I mean, I've seen that movie, like, 6 or 7 times, but you just watched it. And
yeah.
You said that you're gonna rewatch it, so we'll talk about that next time. So, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.